Thank you for coming. So you've been through the consent reform and understand the research.
Yes, I
Yeah.
have.
And do you have any questions regarding the interview?
No, I don't.
Then we can begin the interview. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about your friends prior to starting university. So before starting university, did you have many? How many friends would you say you had?
I had about 20 friends. I'd say probably about 8 of them were close friends.
So where did you meet majority of these friends?
I met the majority of them at high school. I was lucky enough to maintain my friends from high school throughout high school and then to the start of my degree.
Yeah. And so what sort of things would you talk about with your high school friends?
We talk about the general things like relationships and, we'd go out and do things. It was more around what they were doing with their lives and, what was going on with them at the present time. If they weren't in a relationship, maybe things about, what interests or hobbies they had at that time.
Yeah. So have your friendships with with this group of friends changed since commencing university?
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely gotten closer with a few of them, but definitely not as close with a few of them since being at university.
Yeah. Can you describe how it's changed?
Yeah, obviously, with university, you don't have as much time to spend with your friend groups. So, a few of them who didn't have the same study commitments I have, maybe not been able to spend as much time with. So we may have grown apart a little bit. But the ones who are studying, I've been able to maintain friendships with because they understand kind of, how much time you have to put into your course load and things like that.
Yeah. Can you tell me any efforts you made to maintain these friendships?
Yeah, so I definitely would try my hardest to, catch up with them for coffee and things. The ones who were studying, if we were at uni at the same time, we would catch up for coffee, maybe between study breaks and things like that. I try and maintain a social life outside of university as much as I could. But, obviously it's a little bit harder to maintain that social life with people who aren't studying than compared to the people who are.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about current friendships after studying at university. So how many friends do you think you've made whilst studying?
I've made a lot of friends while studying. I probably have maybe 3 or 4 good friends since studying. Those people I am closest with, I went through my last year of uni with.
Yeah. Yeah. So you met them in your classes, in your course?
Yeah. I met them in my classes. So I did a business degree, and a big part of the business degree is working in teams. So they're people that I did a lot of teamwork with and got along really well with, and we would do assignments together and spend time with each other outside of doing those assignments. Maybe we would celebrate together after finishing some assignments and stuff like that.
Yeah. So what sort of topics did you usually talk about with these friends?
So we obviously, our main conversation was uni because that was the major thing we had in common. But we would also talk about things outside of uni just to get to know them better as individuals. In particular about their partners and things like that. Conversations around where they live, where they grew up, what made them come to the university that we were studying at, things like that.
Can you describe any topics that your friends tend to avoid discussing? Were there any topics that were taboo?
Not necessarily taboo, but we tended not to discuss topics around when we had the same kind of classes and people may have gone better than others and things like that. We didn't really discuss that. It was kind of a competitive spirit between my friends at university. So we didn't really have a lot of conversations around classes once they were finished. It was more around the classes once we were in them.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to my next topic. So did your friends discuss academia a lot?
Yeah, definitely. We definitely discussed it a lot. I found it really valuable because it gave us a competitive spirit to adhere to and make sure that we were all working together. And it made us, I guess, feel a lot better when we were at uni at the library until whatever time in the morning doing uni work, if we were all there together. So we were discussing it, but only sort of in the courses that we were currently in. We wouldn't really discuss a lot of the past courses.
Yeah. So you mentioned about staying late at the library. Did friendships at university, how did that impact your study habits?
It impacted them, being that I would stay late at the library with a lot of my peers that maybe didn't have other responsibilities, or they didn't have they didn't have a partner or something to go home to. They tended to stay a lot later. If I was studying with them, then I would stay with them as well. I definitely paid the price for it a few times. Getting only a couple of hours of sleep before getting up for work the next morning or things like that.
Yeah.
But it depended on the person. So if we both had responsibilities to go forward for the next day, then we would, both kind of call it quits at a reasonable hour. It just depended on the person.
Yeah. How did you find maintaining the friendship and academic life?
I found it really rewarding, actually. I got along with a lot of people who were studying very similar majors to me, and we really enjoyed, picking each other up when maybe we'd had a bad week, or we might have got a bad mark and things like that. So, it was really good to have people around you who were like-minded, who were going through the same thing. It's one thing to have friends who are doing a completely different degree and saying, oh, it'll be right, just keep going, but it's something completely different to have friends in your degree who are going through the same thing and have done the same assignments and things like that.
Yeah. So you say that a sort of bond?
Definitely, yeah, it was definitely a bond.
Yeah. So how was your expectation of friendship in university, like prior to starting uni?
I had a lot of friends going into uni, so I guess I didn't know how much time I would have for other friends, but I definitely made that time for them. We were sort of all going through the same thing, so it's definitely a feeling of bringing each of you up together, and I definitely bonded with those people while I was going.
Yeah. So did your expectations sort of change while you started studying?
Yeah, I think it changed towards maybe the middle of my second year to my third year. For my first couple of years, I was in a degree where we had huge class numbers, so it was really hard to get to know people on a more one-on-one basis when you've got, maybe 300 or 400 kids in your class. But towards your third year, where your class sizes start to downsize and you're doing very similar subjects to a lot of people, it made it easier to spend more time with those people, because you were doing the same, you might have been doing 2 or 3 courses together. So you could spend a lot more time, and you could start to coordinate timetables and, make sure you were doing the same classes at the same times with some of your friends and things like that.
Perfect. Yeah. So are there any other questions? Anything else that you'd like to add?
No. I think it was a great experience. I definitely made a lot of friends, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, perfect. Well, if you have any questions about the nature of the research or interviews, just let me know. But thank you so much for being involved.
No worries at all. Thank you for having me.
Bye.